I'm Tommy D from thenixblog.com. It's Friday. Welcome to another edition of TKBtv. Lots to talk about, despite a dormant patch here before we get into preseason camp. Joining me as always, Hoops critic Brian Geltzeiler. How are you, sir?
Good, TD. How you doing today, bud?
Great back and forth Twitter throughout the last couple of days. I appreciate it. Great stuff. And as always, from Sheridan Hoops, Mr. Moke Hamilton. How are you?
How you doing, Tommy? How's it going?
Doing well. Let's get into it. We had a very nice, fiery talk before we just had the cameras rolling. Maybe the camera should have been rolling before. We're talking about Patrick Ewing and maybe the lack of respect, at least that's how he feels, the organization is giving towards him. Let's get into it a little bit. What's your feelings on specifically the situation where they offered him the job to coach the Erie Bayhawks, potentially developing some young players, specifically bigs, and being a part of the organization?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, this is going to be something that, different minds will have different opinions on. But me personally, the way that I look at it, when you consider the fact that Mike Woodson has had a vacancy on his bench once Kenny Atkinson left for the Atlanta Hawks, to me, I look at them offering him a job with their D-League affiliate as sort of them throwing him a bone. And if I'm Patrick Ewing, with the amount of years of experience as an assistant coach that I have both in Houston and Orlando, I would kind of consider that to be a bit of a slap in the face, personally.
Moke makes a good point. Let's be clear about Kenny Atkinson leaving. His job was to develop the young players, specifically Jeremy Lin, and of course the media picks up the Lin leaving and possibly some sort of conflict with the ownership in Atkinson. Kenny took another job and a better job in Atlanta. He wasn't pushed away from the staff, and that's very important. But it opens up the vacancy. It doesn't seem to be a fit, Brian, for me, for Ewing to be on the staff, replacing Kenny Atkinson, a young assistant, when you have Herb Williams, really, whose job is to develop the bigs, which is what Ewing would do.
Yes, but I'll say this, Tommy. With the news coming out last night of the Knicks bringing Hakeem Olajuwon up to training camp in Greenburgh, New York, I could make a case to you that they don't believe Herb Williams is doing such a wonderful job of developing the bigs. If they feel a need to go bring Hakeem Olajuwon into the organization, when Patrick Ewing's sitting here dying to be a part of the organization. Listen, Tom, I understand the way Patrick feels. I don't think I would take the job in the D-League either. I am not disrespecting the D-League. I think it's fantastic, provides an unbelievable service to young players, and certainly can be a very good breeding ground for NBA players. But Patrick's been an assistant in the NBA for 8 years and has done a very good job in certain spots, and a fractured relationship with Dwight Howard and an inability to interview well are really hurting him going forward. And the Knicks obviously don't have a ton of respect for what he can do as a coach, and Patrick feels disrespected by that. Which
is a long time conversation that they've had as a team. There seemed to be a lot of conflict between the franchise and probably their most if not their best, certainly one of their best, most recognizable franchise players.
It's funny, Brian and I agree on this 100%. Now, the thing is, with the Knicks, when you look at James Dolan's track record, it's something that you kind of have to look at it and squint your eyes a little bit, because the way that Jeremy Lin left, okay, and a bunch of decisions that the franchise has made since Dolan took over, everything is not always about basketball, and from what I hear, one of the reasons why there's this reluctance to bring Ewing back is because they're afraid that his persona, his larger-than-life persona, would kind of overshadow the organization. And the other thing about Ewing is he's not really a pussycat. He's not afraid to speak his mind. He's not afraid to talk to the media, and that's something that I think the Garden is afraid of.
Which got him in trouble a lot in Orlando, and there's some mixed reactions, specifically Dwight Howard, who eventually would go work with Hakeem Olajuwon, even though his assistant coach and his mentor was supposed to be Ewing, who did a great job with Houston. Is this an Isaiah Thomas type situation? Talk about larger-than-life personalities. We know the owner had a meeting with him the other day. They are friends. He gives him advice. There's no denying that. He's not a part of the organization in an official capacity. But is this Isaiah Thomas saying, listen, I'm here. I don't need Patrick Ewing's personality here as well?
I don't know if you can put Isaiah's fingerprints on this per se individually, but I will say this about the Knicks organization. They like to be the tail that wags the dog. They like to control everything that comes out. My joke about the Knicks organization, they'll tell you, but they'll have to kill you.
Right.
Okay? That's what the Knicks are from a public relations standpoint.
Sure.
So when it comes to something like this, where Patrick Ewing comes in, is outspoken, is somebody that's going to garner a heck of a lot of attention in Madison Square Garden and in New York, that goes out of the Knicks' control a little bit. And what I'll tell you is, to me, the reasons you don't want Patrick back here in the Garden in a meaningful role at this point probably are very similar to the reasons that you didn't want to even talk to Phil Jackson about coming to the Knicks organization to play a role in running it or to be a head coach.
100% agree. Why is it that the Knicks just can't help themselves? I mean, this goes back a long ways, but when you look at other franchises, specifically the Giants, in New York, specifically the Jets, who bring Joe Namath back into controversial stuff, but the Mets are associated with their players from the past. What do you think the reason the Knicks don't bring their players, their guys back, with the exception of Clyde? What do you think that is?
Well, I mean, I think that they do have a fair amount of over the past couple of years, and I think it started with Donnie Walsh. I think Donnie Walsh, he did Legends Night where he brought back Willis Reed and Clyde Frazier and a bunch of guys and honored them. But now today, John Starks, Larry Johnson, Allen Houston, there are a couple of former players that do have roles with the organization. As far as the stars are concerned, I think we kind of hit on it. I think it's just a matter of, as Brian said, the Knicks like to be the dog that wags the tail, and I think that if you bring Ewing back, you might lose a little control.
And it's a good point that they do have the guys that come back, except Oakley's, the Oakleys of the world. They do have guys supplanted within the community, and that should be mentioned, despite the fact that Ewing is not a part of the organization.
One very funny thing, on the jersey now, on the inside, they have once a Knick, always a Knick, which is a saying that became popular last season. So I don't know where Patrick Ewing is, man. I don't know if he thinks of that right now.
Where does he stand in that? Guys, it's always great job. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
You too, Tom.
And remember, to get all your information on the Knicks and a little NBA, check out the knicksblog.com, part of the SNY.TV blog network. For Brian and Moke, I'm Tommy. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.